This is a presentation on African American student athletes and the challenges faced in higher education by Jared Brannon at Sam Houston State University in HIED 5367. So the spectacle of collegiate sport and prominent role of black student athletes in the United States colleges and universities continues to arouse discussion. The purpose of this presentation is to examine the social, cultural, and individual and institutional racist factors that make it difficult for many African American college athletes to develop skills, aside from those acquired from sports, to succeed in college and life. Indeed, black student athletes, both men and women, encounter race-related challenges that make it difficult for them to excel in the pursuit of success in athletics and academics in an environment characterized by a legacy of racial ideology. The history of sport in the U.S. is characterized by racial ideology, where people use their ideas and beliefs of skin color to evaluate athletic potential. The prevailing ideology is that dark-skinned people excel in certain sports due to natural abilities. The legacy of this racial ideology has shaped many aspects of existing social, organization, and cultural practices. According to research, sports management scholars should recognize the significance of race and ethnicity as a viable epistemological consideration in research inquiry. In this context, the critical race theory views race as the most important social construct to consider in the analysis of social, political, and educational problems in society. As we move forward, we'll look at institutional racism, the black racial identity development, and certain challenges that African American student athletes face while in college. Institutional racism and racial realism provide useful conceptual frames for understanding black college athletes' circumstances at predominantly white colleges. Institutional racism involves identifying subtle, more deeply ingrained attitudes and actions that contribute to black student alienation from the college. This has created an identity of racial hopelessness among the black community, since the black mind and intellectualism has been devalued. Additionally, the hope in life choices and chances at life decrease dramatically for many black children because of this. Since the mindset of successfulness has diminished, it shows in that a strong committed passion for athletics in youth while in school and then eventually into college can negatively affect their academic performance. Since they will have invested all their time in athletics because of what society has branded upon them as their only way of success, they come to ignore the academic side. Therefore, institutional racism and academic marginalization has created numerous roadblocks for most African American student athletes due to the lack of personal involvement within their academic pursuit. So the black identity racial development theory. So the process of black identity development is described in a way which black individuals move from a negative to a positive self-identity in the context of their racial group membership through 5 stages. These 5 stages are pre-encounter, encounter, immersion or immersion, internalization, and internalization commitment. In the slide, you can see just brief definitions on what each one of these stages would consider and include. So this development theory is important to understand because the transition from one stage to the next can be many times a very traumatic process for the individual. So being able to research and understand each stage of development will lead to being able to understand and discuss racial topics more effectively. So as we go forward, we're going to be looking at the challenges faced in higher education by African American student athletes. Some of these include faculty stereotyping, athletic schedule, social and cultural isolation, and the rigor of academics. So through many studies with faculty stereotyping, it shows that black student athletes are treated differently and perceived in a negative way by faculty based on their race. Facing a learning environment that is racist and discriminatory predisposes black athletes to potential academic failure. Black college athletes therefore need the colleges to mount programs to help them gain confidence to focus on academic work. Athlete involvement in academic pursuits positively affects students' overall satisfaction with the college experience. It fosters the continuing pursuit of academics and facilitates a personal growth and development. So in regards to athletic schedules, for coaches to continue to have jobs, they have to perform. They need winning seasons, they need conference championships, they need bowl wins, and need their program to make money. This means coaches have a strong grip on the student athletes and they dictate their schedule and their role on the team. Therefore, black student athletes are given a mixed sign when determining what comes first, their team priorities or their academic studies. The confusion comes from the institution stating that the number one priority is academics, and then the athletics come second, even though black student athletes rank their specific sport first and academics second. But the tiredness or the fatigue that student athletes often go through from practice, study halls, through conditioning, can lead them to missing assignments, skipping class, which can lead to what we know failing or dropping out. So therefore, when you add the demands of sports, their social demands, the pressure of student athletes, peers, it can lead to compromising their academic success. So social and cultural isolation. The transition for many black students from their home to predominantly white institutions can cause high stress for these students. Segregated education prior to college places black students at a disadvantage in several respects, such as schools have fewer resources, they have less experienced teachers, they have high poverty, and fewer advanced placement courses that predict academic success at the college level. One can therefore envision the cultural shock that stemmed from encountering a totally new white culture that they were never used to before, thereby feeling lonely and homesick. And then we look at the rigor of academics. Predominantly black athletes are looked at by their athletic abilities and how many stars that they have behind their name. This has created a system in which high-powered sports run many universities, which gives them the ability to recruit underprepared black athletes into their university. The thought of academic success and preparedness for many coaches is just a hind thought compared to how they actually see their talent. This way of thought and lack of being prepared to enter college is part of the systematic racism that African Americans face well before they start considering college. Nonetheless, with the obvious gaps between the demands of academics, student preparedness, the rigor of their college, and the continuous display of cutting corners in the admittance process is really just a disgrace for our colleges and universities in this country. So in conclusion, given the negative-laden environment that black college athletes experience, a reasonable number do not actually acquire their educational goals, unfortunately. However, it is the responsibility of the university, through the faculty and administrators, to deliberately create and implement policies and guidelines to address the institutional racism that compromises the learning environment for minority college athletes to succeed in college. And one thing that we all have to realize is sports should not be a means to an end for these students, but it should be a start of an opportunity to develop socially, educationally, and instill morals and values and learn life lessons.